Welcome to another episode of Alpha Intuition Podcast, where we're going to help you guys crack that crazy girl code. I am Keisha Blair, your host, and I have my co-host, Mind Wellness Coach, Essence Yarbrough. Welcome, Essence. How are you?
I'm good, Keisha. How was your week so far?
It was amazing. It was amazing. And the book that you recommended last week, The Four Agreements. Oh my goodness. I read it. I listened to it twice. Then I actually listened to it while I was reading it just to make sure I had a full understanding of it. Such an amazing book. Definitely better than the one we talked about last week, Love Languages. So The Four Agreements is an amazing, amazing, amazing book. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're gonna get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and just get us started off with the Four Agreements. And so when I read this book, I got a lot from it. It was from seriously from beginning to end. It was just utterly amazing. It was so many gems in here, so many nuggets, so many different things. It's like I don't even really know where to start. So, you recommended the book, so I'm just going to let you give your, just your understanding of what you got from the book and why you even recommended it last week.
Yeah, the four agreements. So I know we were talking about relationships, and a lot of times in relationships, we're just kind of going on the fly. And, with the five love languages that we had discussed, like that to me was like, okay, you're expecting somebody to do something for you. But with the four
Mhm.
agreements, you're doing something, you're self-improving, and it's maximizing not only just that other person, but you at the same time. And so the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, it's a great book. It's where he's talking about, being impeccable with your words, not taking things personally, not making assumptions and always doing your best, right? And so for me with relationships, I now he likes it in that order, I believe, but what I actually look at when I look at those four agreements, which are basically he's saying that we make agreements with people all the time. We say things out of our mouths. We agree to certain things that might be negative, like if somebody insults you. And if you have that feeling inside of you, you might rock with that. Like, and then you take on that contract, right? But he's saying, rid yourself of those types of agreements, the things that people have laid on you, the things that maybe you thought within yourself, your limiting beliefs, and things like that. And he's saying, take on these four agreements and they will guard you against all these other things, against it'll help you to break these limiting beliefs or break your low self esteem. But those can also serve as hurdles, though, right? But with being impeccable with your word, I'm like, okay, cool, don't take anything personally. Makes sense. Don't make assumptions. Cool. But to me, you're like, if you're not striving to do your best, you're not going to do any of those things. Right. So, like, they all kind of even play off of each other. So, in a relationship,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the way that it'll typically start, and I'll just say this, in a relationship, the way that I see this play out in a relationship is like, let's just say you've made an assumption, right? You make an assumption of, I make an assumption about my guy, like, oh, maybe he's out there cheating on me. He hasn't texted me back. He hasn't called me back, right? So then I start tripping. In my head, I'm making these assumptions already, right? I'm making these negative assumptions that something's going on and he ain't hitting me up. So then I turn right around and I'm like, well, when he gets in the house, now I'm not being impeccable with my words because I'm talking crazy to him. Like, well, where you been? And I'm giving him the third degree because I've made these
Okay.
assumptions. And then anything he says, I take personally, right? And I haven't done my best. So that's why I really like the four agreements.
Yeah, so let's just kind of go through everyone. And before I get too far, I do kind of want to show the book. So this is the book here, The Four Agreements. I actually got this copy, as I mentioned, from a coworker. We actually spoke last night, and I just told her how much I appreciate her lending me this book so that I can read it. But I'm sure, at bookstore, Amazon, whatever the case may be, or even on YouTube, you can just listen to it. I think they have it 2.5 hours, 3 hours long, or something like that, if you just want to listen to the audio version. And it's word for word, 'cause that's kind of what I did. But we're just going to go through each one and just kind of like break it down. So the first one here that they talk about, or that Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, is being impeccable with your word. And, just from a female perspective, we want to just emphasize, like, basically just how important it is for us to be impeccable with our words. And I mean, just from, as a woman, and making sure that we are very clear in what we say, and also making sure that we don't try to attack other people. So one thing that resonated with me when I read this book was it talked about um, the word, and it referenced a scripture in John. I think it was 1-5, and it said, "In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was God." And what does it say? The Word was with God. So, but just to talk about the Word, right? And then you hear throughout the scriptures where it says, where Jesus says, "I am the truth, the way, and the light." So if God is the truth, God is the way, and God is the light, and God is the Word, when we speak, when we speak, and we have that light inside of us, we have to think about that. And what are we projecting onto other people? And then also, what are we projecting on ourselves, right? Because when we speak things negatively about ourselves, are we being impeccable with our words when we say negative things towards ourselves? So that was one thing that resonated with me when I read that first part about being impeccable with your words. So why don't you elaborate on what you got from it?
That was one of the main things. Like, that was a powerful part because he talks about light. He talks it like, and like, I love how you put it about putting it out. Like, it's gonna come out. So
Hmm.
it's like, what are you projecting? And so this holds you accountable to what it is that you're saying, not only to other people, but internally. Because he says in the book, what's internal is going to come out, and that's actually in scripture. From the heart, out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart speaks. So whatever is in us is going to come out, and we do need accountability for that. I think in relationships, we often do see the issue of the mouth, right? The talking, saying things carelessly, just off the fly, just off of emotion. And we don't realize sometimes what we're saying and how that impacts people and what that does to us. So, because he said, whatever you put out, you get back, right? He talked about
Right.
that in the book. So it's like, if I'm doing this to you, I'm getting this back. And when you look at that yourself, it's funny, it's a video where they're like, when you're pointing at somebody, you got three fingers pointing back
Yeah.
at you. And the girl was like,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know,
So
but it's like, you can't get around that though. The accountability is back on you.
So one thing I thought about also with this being impeccable with your words, as women, sometimes we don't realize how we emasculate men by the things that we say to them, and how damaging that can be to a person. Because if a man says that he loves a woman and we claim that we love this man, why are we saying things to tear him down? And in that moment,
Yeah.
if we're not being impeccable with our words, are we really communicating well? We're causing confusion, we're causing chaos in the home. And ultimately, that actually causes a rift in the relationship, when we don't think about the words that we say to our partner. So, we really have to be mindful of the words that we speak, because ultimately we want to make sure that we speak light into other people.
Especially the man that you call yourself, laying down with or wanting to share a
Exactly.
life with,
Or
wanting to
following.
have children
If
with,
you're following,
following.
if you're following a man, why are you going to
Right.
tear him down?
Right. And that's really powerful because I think that sometimes you have women who are trying to dictate what a man is supposed to feel and think and say. And it's like, who do you have? This is interesting because you have to
Mhm.
know who you have before you just gonna say some stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This makes me think of also when we end a relationship, right? Something that's really powerful that I have found to be very powerful is what we speak in that process, because we're speaking what's going to come next to us.
Mhm.
We're speaking what our subconscious is about to prepare to accept in this next phase of our lives. So if you are coming out of a bad relationship and you're like, you know what, I ain't treating no dudes right no more. I'm tired of them. I just want somebody I could screw, and I don't want to have to deal with all this emotional stuff. But that's not truly what you want. But you've set that, and you've imprinted that in your subconscious because you said it out of so much emotion. Your internal
Anger.
emotional side
Mostly in
connected with
anger.
that. So
Yeah.
don't be surprised. I can't be surprised if the next guy
Mhm.
that comes into my life, he don't want no relationship. I've attracted this guy that just wants that. And we
Mhm.
speak, so our words speak back to us, like he was saying. It's
Yeah.
very, very powerful. I've seen it constantly.
We speak things into existence with our words. So that's why we have to be mindful of what we say. And then I'm going to touch on this really quick too. Even as parents, and for men and for women, we have to be mindful of the things that we say to our children because we have no idea how those things affect our children. And so another thing that I got out of this, and I believe this was in the foreword or in the introduction, where it talked about just the agreements that we made with ourselves. And
Yeah.
somebody could have said to us that totally could not have been true. It could have just been something that they may have been going through and they projected that, whatever it was, onto a person. It could have been a child. And now you've gone through your whole life with this agreement that you've made. And, I was talking about how when I was, around 6 or 7 years old, my mother, she called me ugly. And I went through my whole life, thinking that I was unattractive, thinking that I was ugly. And, even when I had a guy that told me that he thought that I was, pretty or attractive, I really latched on to that person. And then when the relationship ended, I felt like, oh my God, I might not find anybody else that's going to feel this way about me because subconsciously, when my mother said that to me, I made an agreement with myself that I was ugly. Now, people may not
Right.
understand that. People tell me all the time they find me attractive, and I appreciate every compliment that I get. However, that's still something that I deal with emotionally on the inside because of something that. So my mother, and this is the person that brought me into this world. She said these things to me at an early age, and it stuck with me all the way throughout my life. So as parents, we have to be mindful of the things that we say to our children because ultimately children, they take what adults say at face value, and they believe, because we're here to teach them and train them, and whatever we say to them, ultimately they're going to believe it. So we just need to be mindful in that and make sure, like I said, that we're impeccable with our words and we don't try to blemish or tarnish someone else with the things that we say.
Right, because impeccable does mean basically like guilt-free, faultless, perfect, like
Hmm.
it's without blemish. And so it's meaning that you don't want to send that message. You don't want to send that energy. You don't want to send anything out that's going to hurt somebody. I think of it as words can be used as weapons, how people are weaponized. And yeah, you just don't want to do that. You want it to be something, like you said, light, healing.
Yes. And then, so even in relationships, we talked about from the women's perspective, right, on how we need to make sure that we don't emasculate our partner and make sure that we try to build them up and not tear them down. But also from a male perspective, guys, you got to make sure that you do the same thing for that woman. You can't go around, saying things that you don't mean and disrespecting the woman. If it's somebody that that you ultimately don't want to be with, you need to think about that moment because that same woman, same way you feel about your daughter, that woman has a father too. And you probably feel the same way about her that you feel about your daughter. And you wouldn't want anybody treating your child that way. So don't treat anybody else's child that way.
Right. And that you actually brought up an excellent point, bringing up the kids and the fathers, and men in relationships with all of us and the mother and that whole unit. What's interesting is what they find is that there is actually a connection with that upbringing, the culture of the upbringing, and how that really can affect. Some people think that arguing is a love language in a sense
Mm,
by itself. Some people think that talking crazy, trash talking each other, you know, that it's actually a sign of love. And so I believe, understanding the communication, how somebody was raised in a house who was like I have a girlfriend of mine, you know, I'm not gonna cuss, but one of the ways that they say I love you is F you. You know what I
wow.
mean? Like, and so it's, but they know it as something beautiful. It's nothing negative to them. But if they were to try to take that dynamic and apply it to
Mm,
somebody else, like that's their own little thing. And so you have to communicate what something is. And oftentimes I think we go into, dating or relationships not knowing, not even realize, just not even being self-aware of what we're projecting onto other people as our norm when
mhm.
we say things. Whereas, that you have sensitivities that people have, and we don't know until we know, until they're cutting up.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
especially like,
yeah,
when you talk about men being impeccable with their word, that's something. It's like, if you don't have nothing else in this world, you have your word. And if you don't stand behind your word, you don't do the things that you say, it's like, what are you saying about yourself? If you're gonna just say something just to be saying it,
yeah,
and you don't hold yourself accountable for the things that you speak, then what does that
yeah.
say about you and your character and your integrity? So for me,
That's
when you
yeah,
have a guy that does not stand behind his word, that's a red flag for me. I'm just like, don't. I would prefer for you to tell me that you don't know. I prefer you to say no, that you can't do it, instead of you just telling me that you're going to do something and then it never happens.
right, right. Well, and it's isn't that's a sign of leadership or the lack thereof. Like, are you able to communicate? Are you able to be impeccable? Are you able to get a message across clearly as a man and say, look, and it's not to say that he has to say everything that's on his mind, right? But at the same time, it's like you know how to clear up confusion. You know how to prevent some confusion. You know how to step in and say, hey, no, this is what this is, or this is what I need. I mean, not saying he's got to go this whole emotional route and give a lecture, but and there are men who do that. But I'm just saying, like you said, just being able to say, and as opposed to lying. Like I don't like lying. That's the biggest turnoff because I always catch a lie.
Yes, because let me say, so my grandmother used to always talk about lying, cheating, and stealing. They go hand in hand. If you'll lie, you'll cheat, and if you'll cheat, you'll steal. So it's like they kind of go hand in hand. And I tell my children this: um, if you have to lie about something, then you know that it's wrong. Because when somebody asks you a question, the first thing that pops in your head is actually the truth. So you have to defer from the first thought that pops in your head to think of something else or conjure up a lie, to even try to force yourself to not tell the truth. So yeah, and if you have
What
to
I've
lie about it, that
learned,
means you shouldn't do it.
yeah, when something with parents and children, when we say something and our children are younger, they really believe us. Like they're still in that
Absolutely.
innocent state where they do believe us. And so when we follow through, we say we're going to do something, they want to know that we're going to follow
Mhm.
through. And that is where they learn to have integrity and be in impeccability with their words.
Correct.
So I'm not going to say it unless I know I'm going to do it. They learn it from us first. If they have been disappointed, and then we'll go back and make an excuse. Like if they've been disappointed because we're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you this and I'm gonna do that and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this on that day. And then that does not occur and they're disappointed and they share with you that they're disappointed. And don't let us like get mad at them, right? Don't let us fuss at them, right? So it's adding insult to bad character, right? So they're
Mhm.
learning all of that. And then we make excuses. Oh, then they're going to be a person of excuses. So we see how
Yeah, it's
that just
learned behavior.
avalanches into it's a learned behavior. And that is a part of what they mean by how sometimes people have a hard time grasping being impeccable with your words because of the upbringing. That is how it's shown. And that's what's taken on.
So, and that's something that we have to think about too, is that we tell our children certain things, and when we lead, or when we have to lead by example. So you talk about being a leader.
Yeah.
What's the key word in that is lead. So in order for you to lead someone and you lead by example, you're showing them what to do. So when you talk about your
Yeah.
children, or even a man being the leader of the house, if you start doing certain things and you're not being impeccable with your words, or you're not living up or doing the thing that you said you were going to do, what type of leader are you? And then, can't be
Right.
upset at a woman for not wanting to follow you when you're not following through on your word.
It's so amazing. It's so funny we're talking about this. I heard this guy talking. He said something very interesting. He said, uh, men are always talking about how, the condition of men today, right?
Mm,
Because it's in a negative space, it's in a negative place because they've been raised by single mothers, right? He said, well, I pose a challenge to the men because we're always saying, so because he was like, because women cannot raise men, women cannot raise men. He said, so where are the fathers? So that instruction from the father is really important. Now, this ain't me bashing. That was just a man saying that. I'm not trying to man bash. But what I am saying is that I think that because then there's another man who's saying men are there. most Black men are having kids in wedlock, right? He's saying all the opposite. But the whole point that I'm noticing in these conversations is the fact that it's the instruction that they're saying that these young boys are needing. And so in instruction comes the action, comes that need to have integrity and good character. And they see all of this. How we're interacting with each other. How does the father act with the mother? How is a man acting with a woman?
Mm.
So it's not just about, because they go hand in hand. If you're going to say something out of your mouth, people eventually have to see what you're doing in your body, in your language, in your
Yeah.
behavior, in your activities.
So I'm
So
going to say this.
I find that,
I actually agree with that because I have 3 boys. And I can't raise my voice. I can't teach them how to
I
be men
can't
because
either.
I'm not a man. Now, like I said, even though, like I say, I'm the
Me either.
guy guru and I'm the male whisperer, and I've learned a lot from guys, I cannot teach my boys how to be men. That's not my job as a mother.
Me either.
I was the first teacher to them as their parent. Of course, I gave birth to them. So, of course, up to a certain point, but there's so many things that I don't know. I don't understand everything about being a man. I'm not even going to claim or profess that I do. So my children's fathers, they are very active in their lives. And trust me,
Yeah.
the fathers of my sons, they actually they take ownership of them. And even with that, there were other men in the community that I had my children around. I mean, even in the church and in entrepreneurial programs and just, coaches, different things like that, to where as a mother, because I knew and I recognized and I held myself accountable for knowing that God gave me 3 boys, that I knew they were one day going to be men. So I had to make sure that I was diligent enough to not be so self-centered to say, oh, I don't need no man. No, I would never, ever, ever say that. I needed the men in my life for my boys so they could teach them how to be men. So I had some very positive role models in my boys' lives. And I mean, they're all great to this day. My boys are amazing. Well, I should say they're still boys to me, but they're all men now. The youngest one is 17. And he's on his way.
Right.
He's in an entrepreneurship program. His dad lives with his dad at this point, and he takes good care of him. And my other ones,
Yes.
he produces music. My other one, he's in the Air Force. So my boys are really, really good. I'm very proud of them, all of them. And I don't want to exclude my daughter, but I'm not talking about her right now. But
Right.
but
Right.
she's
No. No.
amazing
And
too.
you
Just
do.
for my
You do.
boys, yeah, 100%.
Your Yeah, your boys are amazing. Same with mine. My son, wonderful with his dad. Like there's no, like he has a wonderful father. And I think that men get a really bad rep. I think especially Black men get a really bad rep. And at the end of the day, sorry, I think they out here handling business. That's what I see. Maybe it's
Absolutely,
because I'm in the older,
absolutely.
they out here handling it.
So now, one thing that I had to understand early on in my life, just because the relationship didn't work, didn't mean that my child could not have a relationship with their father. It was actually better for us that we split because things didn't work out. But no matter what, I was still
Right.
going to be my child's father. And I cannot stand that term, baby daddy. I don't use it. I don't like it. My children have fathers. They don't have no baby daddies because their fathers are very
Let,
active.
let me say this though. You are one of the things about being impeccable with your word is that you didn't gossip about, you didn't go negative, you didn't talk negatively
Absolutely.
about their fathers. You
Well,
were
no, no,
always
no. I
positive.
probably did, but I just didn't do it in front of them.
No, that's what I'm talking about. But you know what I'm saying, right? I know. Trust me, me and you both, girl. Look, right. Somebody, look, we got to talk to somebody when it don't go right. But no, but they've always had good, from what I've known, good perceptions on their dad. On their dads from you. Like you have always been positive. To be honest, even if you did talk about it, you didn't really talk to me about it because you actually always saw things, you always sought peace. So I just want to give you credit for that because,
Well,
and
I
I think
appreciate
men out
that.
there need to know that there are women out here like us where we don't, because I have zero drama with my kid's father. Like,
I'm gonna tell
he's a
you,
wonderful,
you know where that
we
started?
don't have no drama with ours.
You know where that starts?
And where?
You know where it starts though, right? That starts from not lingering back to the bedroom. That's where it starts. That's where
That's
the
just what I was
drama
about to
actually
say.
starts. You don't linger back to the
Yes.
bedroom. You have a relationship that is strictly for your children. And over time, guess what? The emotions die down. Those those toxic, passionate things, they die down, and you become passionate about raising your
Yes.
child, and you do the best thing for
Yes.
your child. And because you know that you saying something negative about their father in front of them is going to be detrimental to your child, you're never going to do that in front of your child. And even if you want to say something, you might go
Yes.
say it to your girlfriends, whatever the case may be, but you're not going to tear your child's father down in front of them. And you know, I'm just not a woman that does that. And I don't
Yeah.
condone anybody to do that, because ultimately I liked something about him at one point. We had a child together, right?
Yes, exactly. And so this is where, it goes back and forth, but we see this a lot of times, mostly with the mothers doing that over, against the fathers in front of the kids. But either way, we just know we have to be careful about what our children hear, because they see themselves as attached genetically and spiritually and
Absolutely.
any other way, culturally attached to their parents. So anything that somebody says against one and that child hears that, well, I'm half of that. So does that make me like that? Is that how I'm going to
Mhm.
turn out? We have got to be careful, because we internalize the things that we hear from youth. I love my mother. My
Mhm.
mother, look here, my daddy is a whole situation. Do you hear me? But my mama
Mhm.
never spoke crazy about that man. Never. She just let me find out for myself.
No, that's usually how it happens. So, look, I'm going to lead us into our second topic, because I know we kind of touched on this already, but don't take anything personally. Now, I'm going to say this, that that's just hard to do. I'm sorry. And I mean, especially when somebody like me, where I know I'm very passionate about a lot of things in my life, especially things that I care
Mhm.
about, it's really, really hard when you're passionate about something to not think, to not take things personally. So even though, I read this and I tried to understand where was Don Miguel Ruiz was coming from, basically saying that when someone does something to you, most of the time it has nothing to do with you. It could have been because something that they had going on at home, something that they were triggered by, something that they had going on in their life, and they just basically lashed out at you. So, hypothetically, you basically got hit with a stray bullet. It wasn't like that person really meant to tear you down in any type of way. It had something to do with something that was going on inside of them, and you just took the bad end of that. So that's how I
Yeah.
understood it.
Yeah.
What did you get from that?
So I don't know if it's taking things personally or if it's the making the assumptions, probably the making the assumptions part. So I won't touch on that part yet. But taking things personally, I think it is very easy to be offended. I think about this verse where Jesus, because he offended a lot of people, right? And he was like, "Blessed are those who are not offended by me." Like, like it's a blessing when we're not offended by certain things and people, right? So it's very easy to take things personally because of our own wounds, or because of
Mm,
how we work hard on something, or like you said, we're passionate about something. But we have to remember that we become a part of somebody else's reality. We're going into their world, they're coming into our world, and we've had our own experiences that make us maybe possibly vulnerable
mm,
to certain things that are being said or done or whatever. And people ain't even thinking about it like that. They just like, oh, again, goes back to their culture. It goes back to things that they say, do, their own wounds, their own, I don't know. But, people just, so it's easy to take things personally,
well,
because if I'm
I'm sorry.
connecting myself to you, well, I'm just saying, if I'm connecting myself to you, especially in a relationship, and I'm trying to get understanding and I can't get that clarity, clarity will make things very offensive very fast.
Mm. I was just gonna say, like, where we talked about, women who say things to men and they emasculate them. It's like, how, as a man, how would they not take that personal when someone is trying to attack them personally? You know, it takes a strong guy to just say, "Oh, she'll be all right," or "She's just mad," or like, I wasn't really, I'm not going to get offended by what she said. Most of the time, you're going to get a different person because you offended this person, right? So
I
it's
don't
like,
know, girl. You talk about cracking the crazy girl code. I mean, that's the whole point, girl, because they know we crazy out here. Like, it's when they like, you know what? I can't. I think that men have been taught. See, that's the thing.
mm,
I think men have been taught early on to control their testosterone. That's
mm,
why it might take a long time before a man really starts to pop off for some men. You know what I mean? Like, because you have some men that are like, if I pop off the way you're popping off, I've been to knock you out and hurt you. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm so
But
I know I have to hold back a little more,
But see, that kind of goes
but
into
it
like, when we talked about as far as women, how like, as women, you already know we gonna pop off. We gonna say whatever, especially when we get upset. So those are things that we cannot teach a young boy how to be a man in that
cannot.
moment. Because if a man is trained to not pop off and he's trained to restrain his testosterone and not go hard, or to be abusive to a woman because she said something hurtful to him, that's something as women that we don't do. We'll flash out in a heartbeat and we'll say the things that, it takes. And I did it when I was younger. As I've gotten older, I've realized that, it's never really good to hurt somebody's feelings. Even especially when you call yourself loving someone, even in that moment, it's hard to repair something once you've damaged it. And you can put all the masking tape and all the band-aids and all that stuff you want on top of it, but ultimately underneath you still have that wound. So that's why you really just need to think about what you say. And even if you tell that person, don't take things personally, well, ultimately, go back to the first one. If on the other side, the person being impeccable with their words, you won't even say anything to that person to offend them to where they feel like they don't have to take it personally.
And see, and that's the thing, because men might not like respond back in that sense, right? In the sense of like lashing out, right? They
Mhm.
might, a lot of them do. But one, they do take that into their hearts. Men do not forget. They remember certain things and they do internalize, and that is an emotion for them that they take in, and now they have to process that because they've heard stuff for so long. I remember men
But
take
that's a
so
trigger,
much.
though. That's just a trigger, right? That's just a
It
trigger. When you
is.
say something, it's just like you're opening up that wound all over again. And even though you may not have been the person to inflict the original wound, but yet you've opened it up and now you pour salt on it, right?
Right, right. Excuse me. And that's the whole thing, Keisha. It's like people can't help but to take things personally. We don't even know half the time.
Mm.
Some men, we don't even know when we've offended them because they just sit back. If they're a stoic man, if they just one of those the man's man, and they just sit back and they're chill, they take that stuff in. And then you have some women now. I will say, because there are some boys out there, we see videos all the time where these boys are popping off on these girls. They cutting up. So
Mm.
I think that, from their triggers, I actually call it. So this is what I call it. I call it trigonometry. And I said, knowing the math of your triggers. That's what I call it. I call it trigonometry.
That's
I
right.
actually have it in my book. Yeah. And so it's important to know the math of your triggers, the science behind your triggers, even like
Yes,
what
yes.
triggers you. And when you know yourself about that, and that's what's good about these four agreements, because when you learn these, you understand these, and you know these, then you're able to say, okay, I know myself. This is my boundary. This is my line. You know what I mean? As opposed to just going with the wind.
So that's what I
And
was going to say, is that one thing I've learned to do as I've gotten older is that I just learned to just set boundaries with people who are offensive to me. I just nip it in the bud. I don't laugh about it. I don't joke about it. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what you're not going to do, is you're not going to be disrespectful to me. And I don't like the way
right.
you've spoken to me. I don't like to be called this. I don't like to play that way. This is not a game for me. So if that's the way you feel like you need to treat me, then we can just end this right now. And I'm very, very vocal about that. And that, as far as from a woman's perspective, it's something that we have to make sure that we do is we set those boundaries and we make sure that we let guys know. And then even guys too, you just have to let your partner know if they do something that's offensive to you. If a woman says something to you that you don't like, even though you don't take it personally, but you still have to set those boundaries and just say, okay, look, this is the last time you're going to do this. You're not going to talk to me like that. And if so, then you do be willing to walk away, because you know that
Yeah.
ultimately that person is not for you if they're disrespecting you and treating you that way.
How are we as women, Keisha, supposed to care about that with men when oftentimes women have not been taught to care about men's emotions? Remember how we'll say, just suck it up when they're little kids. We hear about the boys being told, suck it up, stop crying. They're taught to harness their emotions and to not show them. And unfortunately, how are we as women in a relationship? How can we help a man to let him know, look, I want you to voice how you're feeling. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you're taking something personally because you're not saying anything to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, because a man would just go act out. If he's mad, okay, I'm just go cheat on her real quick. I'm just go do this real quick.
Well, but
I'm just,
that's
you know
not
what I mean?
always
Like,
true for
okay,
men. Yeah, I'm not gonna even say that for all men. I don't because you know what,
no,
men,
not for all, not
but
at
you have
all.
to remember though, men don't cheat with the purpose like women do. We cheat with the
I thought
purpose.
you was about to say
We
black men
cheat.
don't cheat.
I'm just saying, we cheat. Be women. We cheat because we want to hurt the person that cheated on us, or because we want to hurt that person. Period. Men don't need a reason to cheat. So it's they're
No,
not
they
cheating
don't.
because somebody offended them. They may cheat because they may not be making enough money at work. They may cheat because it's Tuesday. They may cheat because they saw somebody that just was, they ran into with an old flink. I mean, it doesn't have to be about. And I think honestly,
No rhyme
100%.
or reason.
But no, I don't think men cheat to hurt their partner. I really
So,
don't.
so as far as like, how do we know if they're taking anything personally if they don't say anything to us? Like, how does that even make sense? I don't even know if I'm making sense, but it's like, don't take anything personally. Sometimes we don't know if people are even offended. You know what I mean?
Well, like I said, I think that most men they will let you know what they're thinking and what they're feeling by their actions. They don't have to tell you a thing, but you can tell by your actions whether or not you offended someone because
Right.
they're going to start acting different. They're going to start being different. So, and then ultimately, you as a person, you know when you said something that wasn't right. As a woman, we know when we say things to hurt a guy's feelings. When he starts acting funny, you don't have to ask what's wrong with you. You already know. You didn't sit up here and call this man out his name, or you didn't say something foul to him, or you've done something to where he felt like he no longer wanted. You knocked yourself down a couple of notches as the woman in his life because he may have had plans for you and now you just basically X yourself out of those plans because of the things that you've either said or done. And sometimes those damages that you've done, they're irreparable. And like you said, you could have done something where it may have opened up, what you call it, trigger what? Trigonomics.
Oh,
Yeah,
trigonometry. Oh,
you
yeah,
could
know that. Yeah,
trigonometry. You
trigonometry.
could have had, you could have done something to where it, like I said, it opened up an old wound. And because they don't want to deal with those emotions. They don't even want to deal with it. I'm not gonna sit up here and be trying to make this work with somebody who's going to trigger me in that way. So they'll be willing to walk away.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's the whole thing. It's like people don't see their stuff. They're not self-aware because of, remember, like what we just talked about in the first one, because of the self culture or the family culture that they were raised in, that's how they talk. They don't they saw their mama cussing out their men. So they do
Okay,
it.
this
It's
reminded me of something.
crazy.
No, so
Hmm.
what I wanted to say was that we have to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable for our actions.
Yep.
It's not always about you can't. It's only so long before, as an adult, you can lean on your past and say that you're doing this because of XYZ because of what happened to me back in 1922. Well, guess what? Now you're 40, 50 years old. You can't keep saying that I act this way because this is how I was raised. Well, as an adult, you know better. You know that the
Right.
way that you were raised is not right. You know that just because it happened in your childhood or happened in your home doesn't mean that you have to continue that, what we call generational curses, right? You don't have to continue that pattern. You take it upon yourself to change it because you ultimately have seen that yelling at a man as a woman is going to, that will probably make him go out and cheat more than anything because he don't want to hear you nagging at him, right? Because he's going to go be with somebody who's going to be loving and caring. And if this
Right.
person is someone that you chose to be with and chose to follow, why would you not want to be loving and caring to that man to make him want to open up to you? And if a person feels safe, if a man feels safe and he feels like he can share himself with you and you're not going to throw those things back in his face, then that will probably be those moments where he feels comfortable sharing things with you. But if every time he tells you something, you turn around and get mad and throw it in his face when you get upset, then no, the man's probably not going to share too many things with you because he can't trust you with his words.
Yes, yes. And a lot of times, unfortunately, you have a lot of people who are more resistant to change when you do say something. And if men, if y'all get that type of woman where she just doesn't know how to listen to you and she's just causing you more trouble than it's worth, you need to just bounce. You need to just keep it moving, you know, because it's a hot mess, girl. This right here. Come on with it.
Yeah, we get into our next one right here, and don't make assumptions because you already know. Sometimes we will create a whole nother. What was that one thing called Sin City or Sim City? You will create a whole nother parallel universe to a situation
Yes.
just because you crafted it up in your head. Women, we are so guilty of that. We'll sit there and always be trying to say, "Well, he did this. You done went down this whole path." As a crazy girl, to where this guy you think you cheated, you don't even know, you done went through his phone, you done found some stuff that probably ain't, you don't know what it's about, but you conjured up all of these things in your head to where now you've made all these assumptions to where you know now you're mad for no reason because you've given yourself all this information that's false. So,
That's false and wasted all that energy.
false information. So as women, we talk about, don't make assumptions. Be willing to listen to the whole story. Don't listen just to wait until your turn to speak. Listen to understand. And make sure that if you don't completely understand, ask questions. And make the person feel safe enough to where they can tell you the truth and not want to think of a lie because they think that you get ready to say something crazy.
Yes. And a big thing about assumptions is expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So because people go into situations, they have these subconscious automatic expectations that this is what a person is supposed to do. This is how a man is supposed to be. That's why the topic of gender roles today is so important. Like it's such a hot topic because it's a set of expectations and assumptions that this is what this man is going to do. This is what this woman is going to do. But you have to enter in, you're basing your new person off of previous agreements. You know what I mean? So again, you have to go in being impeccable with your words. You have to connect, talk, listen for understanding, and understand that, this person probably grew up with a different set of rules than me. They say, all skin folk ain't kin folk, right? You don't know who you're entering into a relationship with. Even that's not your child you're talking to. That's another grown person who came up in a whole other household. So it's like I'm not going to sit up here and make some assumptions. I'm not going to, and you might even have good intentions. That's the whole thing. You might have really great intentions with somebody. But if you are not able to communicate and understand that somebody else might be coming from a different dynamic, what happens is that you have, the misunderstandings from the assumptions and the expectations, which makes people what? Offended. They take it personally. You know what I mean? Which leads right back to then all of a sudden it's an argument. You're not being impeccable with your words, and none of y'all doing your best. So this right here, these four, girl, I'm telling you. So that's really my take on assumptions. It's the issue. You know what I mean? Because it starts here, and can't nobody but you see this. So that's why I told you about my boogeyman effect that I wrote about. I have an ebook that I'm gonna be doing called It's Already Done, but it's called the boogeyman effect, and it is breaking down how to not do this, how to not move in this space where you have, like you said, this person has created a whole other person. Like it's a whole boogeyman. Like that's not the person that you are actually with. That's the person who you fear that person will become or do to you. And that's a totally other person. That person that you're with, if they know, they've never cheated on you, they've never given you true reason, you don't have any evidence, you went through their phone, you didn't find nothing, you know what I mean? Or you didn't go through their phone, but they haven't shown you anything. And you're still like, why they take 10 extra minutes coming home? Who they got at their job? You know what I mean?
Or like the words be like, I had a dream.
But why? But why? Yeah, I had a dream. Now I ain't gonna front, girl. I did have a dream, and it did turn out to be true. But I know, I know. But I'm gonna say this though. Like one of the things, oh shoot, you mentioned the dream, girl, it threw me off. But So, at the end of the day, you have people who are going through this, right? Oh, hold on, I gotta get some water. Hold on. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. But I'm going to say real quick, when we think about, making assumptions, ultimately you're assuming something that's only true in your mind. That doesn't mean it's actually happening. That doesn't mean that it actually happened to that person. And what you're doing is you're not listening, you're not communicating, and you're not promoting clarity and understanding in your relationship. You all right?
Yes. I'm good now. Thank you. Because I was like, oh, am I about to have to hack? Okay. But no, so, when it comes down to these assumptions and, you know, having these intentions or expectations that are good, bad, indifferent, whatever, if you do not know yourself, if you're not self aware to say, you know what, I know that I got some pain and trauma in this area. Maybe
Mhm.
I am, you know, I do make assumptions. I do kind of jump to conclusions. I do sort of, I don't, like you said in the beginning, like, let me stop, let me listen, right? You know, let me hear people out so that I'm not just making up my own story here. Why waste that energy? Why even waste that energy? So,
Mhm.
when we're having these discussions, and this is just something, here's the thing, the fact that you even are watching this and you are aware that, hey, we make assumptions, that empowers you right there to say, hold up, am I doing this with my person? Am I
Mhm.
assuming the worst of this person? Has he actually shown me that? When you begin, that is the spark of awareness right there. Just looking at this, saying, okay, I might be holding an expectation of this person, and I haven't even talked to them about it. Because and now all of a sudden y'all arguing and y'all having two different arguments because you not even on the same. You don't even know what the argument is really about. This person
Exactly.
is talking about how you ain't did the dishes, and you're thinking it's just talking about communication. It's like, what? No, this person has an expectation that they set before you that you didn't know about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
So
it's things like that.
I'm thinking that ultimately it has to do with respect, right? It has to do with the respect that you have for that person to even give them the benefit of the doubt. Or when you have these assumptions, you want to make sure that, okay, you know that this person has been showing you that they love you. This man has been doing all the things that they need to do. And just because it took them 10 minutes longer to get home today doesn't mean that they made a detour to some woman's house. It could have just been because they stopped to get gas.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's all about trust. Like, and it's all about having just that, just to try to promote that mutual understanding that you have in your relationships. And ultimately, when you have that to where you kind of let that barrier down, it really allows both partners to just, just to be more authentic and just to embrace just the environment that they're in to where they feel like it's okay for them to be vulnerable.
Yes, that is really important. And I think that, I had an ex-boyfriend who I found really intriguing. He would tell me, just roll with the program, right? And it was something about that I didn't like, clearly. But what, in layman's terms, read the room, right?
I,
Read the room. And what I mean is, sometimes you have a person who's just not going to talk to you. They're not a talker. They expect you to just kind of get it, right? And that leaves it up to you to make all these assumptions, right?
mhm.
And I'm like, huh. So you have to know also the type of person, how they communicate, and whether or not they are willing to negotiate that with you. And if you realize that you're not with that type of person who's willing to negotiate that with you and say, oh yeah, let me talk a little more, let's have those mature conversations, let's actually talk about how you receive communication versus how I receive communication, because otherwise it's going to be left up to nothing but assumptions. And I think that sometimes we do have these expectations that people are just supposed to know what to do. They're just supposed to read the room. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
some people you can. Like, I think as women, we do have that intuition where we learn our man. We love to learn our man. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, but at the end of the day, we don't get everything right. That's just like how men are like, I don't know what the woman wants. Do you ask? And sometimes that's where
Exactly.
communication comes in. Just, you know what I mean? You just
You never
ask,
think about that
you know?
song, No Pain, No Gain, where she said, I was learning my man, or I was earning my man, something you young girls might not understand.
Right.
No pain, no
Yeah. Oh,
gain.
girl, they don't know nothing about
And
that song. Yes.
see, but then always is so like, I'm gonna go to this last topic here, right? So the last one here is always do your best. When you think about like just doing things to the best of your ability, you want to make sure that as a woman you learn your man. You want to make sure that you understand the things that he likes and things that he doesn't like, things that are pleasing to him, things that are not pleasing. And you really want that behavior reciprocated to where you try to do your best in that relationship. But when I read this part of the book where he talked about always do your best, that was just in every aspect. So at work, parenting, as a wife, as as a girlfriend, whatever the case may be, anything that you're going to do, why, to use a term, can't, let me find another way to say this without cursing. Why, I'm gonna say half-ass it, right? Why, why
Look,
not do it to the best of your ability? And if you're not gonna do it to the best of your ability, then why even open up that can and why even try to do it at all? And I'm gonna give you an example. So that's like, if you were on the phone, I went to Chick-fil-A, right? And I'm sitting up here, I got this salad, and this guy, he had an attitude with me because he gave me the wrong salad. And I'm thinking, like, you're at work. If you are back there, why not make the salad the way it's supposed to be made as opposed to get an attitude with me? Because I've recognized that you didn't take pride in your work as a Chick-fil-A worker to make my salad right. And then you give it to me, and now you got a problem with me because the salad is wrong. I'm supposed to just accept that. And you know what I mean? When it's not your best.
right.
And then not only accept it, but I'm supposed to pay for it. So, and I mean, that was monetary, but I mean, you think about in like relationships, right? So when you have, a guy to where, or when you have a woman to where she is giving her all, she's doing all of these things. And then it's like the guy doesn't want to, you want to get an attitude with me because you're not doing everything that you're supposed to do. And now you're upset with me because I'm asking you for something that I feel like you should have given me because I feel like I put my all into it. So why are you not putting your all into it?
I think that's the expectation, though, again. And that's where the problem comes. It's like the expectations are there, the assumptions are there that they're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is where it could be a hang up. You actually bring up a good point because if you know that you're always doing your best and that other person is not, all we can do is expect that we can do our best because
Correct.
oftentimes it's like we'll get offended. That's like an easy setup for offense because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm putting him out. But here's the thing, this is what's so beautiful about that is that, and what this reveals, what you just said, is if I'm always doing my best, it will reveal if this person is for me. We
Mm-hmm.
are often afraid. We are so afraid of losing people that we really want. We have to be willing to let go. That needs to be like the fifth agreement where we just like willing to let go
Well, because
because
just remember, that's what I said in the very beginning, right? When we talk about having all of these agreements, and these are the agreements that we've made with ourselves. So, what is it inside of us that causes us to want to stay with someone that does these things to us? And I believe in the book what he talked about was that if you were treated bad, then you think that that behavior is okay. So when someone comes along and they treat you not as bad as what you've been treated, you're going to accept
yes,
that from them because you think that, oh, okay, well, I've been through worse. But just because you've been through worse, that still means that you have to accept less than someone else's best.
that's so that's what I was going to say a little bit earlier was when it comes to men who are listening, um, you know, a lot of these women are more vocal about the traumas that we've been through, right? We'll kind of vocalize. Some women will vocalize that. They say, women, stop telling all your business in the first few dates. You telling all your trauma. You telling how so and so Daryl then
Mhm.
cheated on you. So and so cheated on you. Everybody cheated on you. So you have some women out there that y'all have dated and they have expressed this. They've shown this.
Mhm.
You're getting a look into what it is, where her traumas are, where her wounds are, where her fears are. So you have like kind of like an understanding of what it is that she might be bringing to you, right? Some of her insecurities, how she might not be impeccable with her word, how she might have certain beliefs, issues, and problems. Anyway, I'm getting to the point is that at the end of the day, you guys know that. And when you know that about somebody, please, I just say consider that when it's how you want to treat somebody. Just because you know that that person got the lowest treatment, don't come in and say, oh, I only got to treat her like this. This
Correct.
person treated her like this down here. I only got to do this. But then
And
for the
then,
next chick, you give her everything because you don't know what none she done been through. You don't know the bar she done to you. She done set the bar way up here. So
ooh,
when
you
women
don't
are
have that.
telling you her
Mhm.
traumas, when women are saying their traumas to you, that's not the open door to say, oh, then I only got to do this much for you.
Well,
So
no,
just
what
keep
it's
that in
not,
mind. Do your best.
it's not the open door for you to think that it's okay to be for for you to basically take notes to see how far you can go or how much you can get over on that woman because of the things that she's been through in her past. As a man, ultimately, men, you're the leaders of the household, and if you know that you've met a woman that you're not going to be with, then don't subject her to the abuse that you're
Right.
going to inflict on her just because you know that the things she's went through or she's gone through is not someone that you want in your life. Let her go. Let her go be out there and find someone else who's right for her, as opposed to tearing her down and inflicting more pain on her just because you feel like, well, I can just go ahead and I can treat her. She was treated this bad, so I can get like right here, and then I can do all this stuff, and
Yes.
she's going to accept it because she accepted this from someone else. And then on the
Yes.
flip side, as women, we have to do is make sure, like you said, we have to just be more protective of our words and make sure that we don't share a lot of things with people who are not going to be protective of us in those moments. So we can't be authentic. We can't we can't let our guard down with someone who is not going to be our protector. So we should not be vulnerable in those moments with someone who's not going to embrace us. So,
Yes.
uh,
Yes, it's about feeling safe. It is about feeling
yeah,
safe. And,
100%.
men, and I will say, oftentimes a lot of men don't feel safe because they are wounded within themselves. Men, if y'all know that y'all have wounds and hurts that y'all have probably either shared or not shared, please take it upon yourselves to do some of that work yourselves. Like, listen, go to some therapists, listen to, I don't know, whatever's going to help you, whatever floats your boat, or just become more mindful and aware of the things that have hurt you in the past. Because what happens is that it creates a block, it creates a shield over your eyes of your perception. You perceive women, you'll end up perceiving women, and women do this too, perceiving each other through the eyes of your trauma rather than who
Hmm.
that woman actually is. And that can really be holding back a blessing from you as well if you're a man who is looking for something serious and, don't want to play no games,
So
which I think that's the majority of men want something good.
I think you touched on something. So it just made me think of a lot of guys that I dated did not have good relationships with their mothers. And
That's
ultimately, it was very, very important for me to to have a good relationship with my sons. So, and I know we're getting close to the
me
end
too.
end of the show. I've only got a couple more minutes here, but that's something I want to touch on the next time we speak. Now, next week, I'm going to be in Cancun, right? So, I'm going to try to do it live from Cancun. Uh, and see if I can get that done. If not, then when we come back next week, we'll make sure that that we talk about men and the relationships that they have with their mothers and how it affects their relationships as adults. So that's definitely what our next topic is going to be about. But this book right here, The Four Agreements, if you guys please go and get this book or go and listen to it on Audible, YouTube, whatever the case may be. This is an amazing book. We only touched on a little bit of stuff over this last hour. It has been so much more that we actually could have
Yeah.
tapped into, and we did not even get an opportunity. We only touched on the surface, but this is an amazing book. So guys, you go and read this book, and it will definitely help you to understand how to cultivate those loving, caring relationships that you need to have as fathers and as husbands and as brothers
Also,
and friends.
yes, also, it's just sexy. A man that reads like real stuff, like books, girl, that's so sexy to me. Y'all, that's fly. I'm sorry. I love a man that reads books, girl. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
Not only that you read the book, but you actually can actually comprehend what you read
Implement.
and be able to implement it as well. So, and
Yeah,
ultimately, as women, we love guys who know a lot of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? And that's one thing that just really gets me. A man who's full of information who can actually teach me some things and show me something. Oh my goodness!
girl, I
And
love to learn. Teach
look, we're
me.
here for a whole nother show right there.
Yes, it is a whole other show. You right. Yes, because I do. I love a man that knows a lot of stuff. I'll be in amazement, like, for real? How I do that? For real? Okay, let me do that. And I will go try.
All
Yeah,
right.
I love it.
Well, thank you, Essence, once again. This has been an amazing show. And you guys
Thanks,
out
Keisha.
there, you know what? You just keep coming back, and we'll do everything we can to try to help you guys crack that crazy girl code. And you guys take care, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
All right. Bye.